Hello and welcome to Food Safety Fridays. My name is Simon Timpley from the International Food Safety and Quality Network. Delighted to say our special guest and very good friend of IFSQN, Vladimir Suchinsky, is joining us today. And today we're going to be talking about FSSC 22000 version 5.1 and specifically environmental control requirements. So welcome, Vladimir. Lovely to
Hello,
have you back.
Simon. Yeah, it is very nice to be here again. You know, from last year, I think that we had one presentation somewhere in September or even before that, and long time no webinars. And I was eager, to talk about this topic because we have a lot to talk about this environmental control requirements because it's a rising question in all the GFSI standards, and I think we will have a discussion.
Super, can't wait. Tell us where you're joining from in the sidebar. We'll have a look and pick one or two of you out. But first, I'm going to play the sponsors ads. Be back in a couple of minutes. Are you there, Vladimir? Santosh is from India, and Moses from Kenya, and Paul from Hampshire in the UK, and I saw Tanya from Serbia as well.
Yes,
So
yes, I have seen.
very good. Right. Okay, well, I'll be back for the Q&A, but for now, I'll hand you over to Vladimir.
Thank you very much, Simon. So hello, everyone, once again. Welcome to today's Food Safety Friday webinar. And I talked with Simon before we started, and now let's say that IFSQN is really active for 20 years. Can you imagine that? And then I have started working with IFSQN from 2015, I think, 2014 and 15. So we are long time together doing these webinars and paid webinars and all kind of different and very interesting topics. And as always, I try to give you some really interesting topics, that we can discuss. And also I try to keep up with all the new topics that rise in the food safety world, just that you are there, and also that IFSQN provides for you something new and really understandable. So today, actually, we are going to talk about the FSSC 22000 version 5.1. This is the last version, environmental control requirements. So probably all of you already know me. I have seen that we have almost 2,000 registered attendees today, and at the moment it's really hard to keep up with chat and reading the chat. So I will leave the questions at the end. and at the end we will answer all of your questions. So probably all of you already know me, as I'm a presenter from 2015, as I told you, for the IFSQN. We have gone through many interesting topics. Generally, I'm working for Quality Austria, which is a certification body, and I'm over there a product manager for the certification and trainings in food standards. And my primary activity is actually to develop and to include new offers, let's say, for products and products, of course, for Quality Austria. But I'm also a food auditor for almost 15 years now, doing the different kinds of food audits, different kinds of supplier audits, third-party audits, and also, I'm a food safety expert acknowledged from Quality Austria, so I will try to transfer all of my knowledge from all of these audits that I have done. Lately, we had a little bit fun and we discussed about the number of companies I entered industries, and it's more than 860 industries that I have audited. So different kind of industries, different kind of products. So I think that you will get a lot of new and interesting knowledge that I really like to share with you. Also, one thing is there, and this is addicted2food.me. This is the Addicted to Food food safety blog. I record some blogs with internationally recognized professionals from different kinds of industries, from different topics. We have talked about 3D printing of food. We have talked about laser cooking of food. We have talked about the insects as food and food safety aspects connected with that. So go visit on YouTube or my web page, addicted2food.me. So let's continue with our today's topic, and let's talk about this environmental monitoring. So as you already know, all the standards like FSSC 22000, IFS Food, SQF are part of Global Food Safety Initiative. This Global Food Safety Initiative is the let's say the roof of all the food safety in the world, giving some guidance documents for all the standards to be on the same level and to be benchmarked. So when GFSI with all the professionals decide to have a new requirement, they announce this requirement in the guidance document, and then all other standards needs to be benchmarked or comply with this guidance document. That's why I want to start with this actually guidance document of the GFSI. It is a version 2020, and in this version we have a definition of environmental monitoring program, and we have a requirement given in the food safety management. This is environmental monitoring. Additionally to this, I want to add allergen management just for you to have it in your head, and we will come back to it. So if we talk about the requirement in the GFSI, requirement says that for environmental monitoring, you have to have a risk-based approach that shall be in place to define the microbiological environmental monitoring program, which shall be established, implemented, and maintained to reduce the risk of food contamination. So you already understand what needs to be done. You have to have some kind of risk-based approach. This means risk analysis. And then you have to define some kind of monitoring program for the environment. And this monitoring program needs to be connected with the microbiological aspects. Okay? And the idea at the end is to reduce the risk of food contamination from the environment in which we are working. Okay, and then when you go to the definition guidance of the GFSI, you have there the definition saying what is the environmental monitoring program, saying that this is the evaluation of the effectiveness of controls on preventing contamination from the site environment. Okay, so this get me into thinking when you say effectiveness of controls, okay, I understand that you have to have some implemented controls in your environment on preventing contamination. And then it got me thinking about what kind of contamination, because we can have microbiological contamination, like they explained it in the requirement on the environmental monitoring, but then we also have the allergen contamination. Okay, so this allergen contamination could also happen. So that's why I included also the requirement for the allergen management. So allergen management plan shall be established, implemented, and maintained, and this shall include a risk assessment of allergen cross-contamination. So you see, they have it in their requirement. But when we talk about environmental monitoring program definition, it is quite not clear, because they are saying preventing contamination from the site environment. And then it comes to another question: what is a site? Site environment. This is something that we will discuss on next slide. So GFSI guidance document is version 2020. And then we have FSSC 22000 scheme version 5.1. So this version needs to be complied with the GFSI guidance document, and inside it needs to have environmental monitoring. So when we look at the definition for the environmental monitoring program, this is focused on the site environment. And then GFSI would say in their document that site is the location where an organization performs work or from which a service is provided. So it's quite clear what is a site. And then we need to think about the environmental monitoring of the site environment. But when you go to the FSSC definition, this is a scheme version 5.1, and you have over there links where you can find all of these documents, then you find out that the definition is quite similar, but also quite different, because they are saying a program for the evaluation of the effectiveness of controls, which is practically the same, on preventing contamination, which is exactly the same as in GFSI, from the manufacturing environment. So you see, it's a little bit different now in the definition of the FSSC. You have here site, but you have here manufacturing environment, which is quite smaller area to be controlled in our environmental monitoring than when we talk about the site environment. But we will come back to it in more details, and I will show you how to comply with both definition and both requirements, no matter if it's a site or it is manufacturing environment. I just want you to have and to keep in mind this, that you will find in many different kinds of standards and different kinds of explanation on internet that people are talking about sites, and also they're talking about manufacturing environments. So when we go to the FSSC 22000 version 5.1, this is version that is active from November 2020. So this is version completely according to the GFSI document. In this version, you will find the requirements for the organization to be audited, and this is requirement 257, environmental monitoring, and it is only applicable for the food chain categories of C, I, and K. So C is the production of food, K is the production of the biochemicals, etc. These are just the food chain categories where the environmental monitoring can be applied, and tracked. So in this case, the requirement is quite similar to what is the requirement in the GFSI, saying the organization shall have in place risk-based environmental monitoring program, documented procedure for the evaluation of the effectiveness of all controls on preventing contamination from the manufacturing environment, and this shall include, this is very important to remember, and this shall include at a minimum the evaluation of microbiological and allergen controls present. So you see, it's a little bit different than it is defined in the GFSI. In GFSI, they are saying only microbiological, but here FSSC is saying microbiological and allergen controls present. and at the end, data of these monitoring activities, including regular trend analysis. So if you look at only the requirement, you have to have next documents. You have to have hazard analysis or risk-based environmental monitoring. You have to have some documented procedure, and this documented procedure needs to include the effectiveness of all controls, and it needs to include the evaluation of microbiological and allergens present. And at the end, you have to have one document which is trend analysis on monthly basis or yearly basis or whatever you want, but this is what you have to have in this environmental monitoring. And it was quite interesting when they said, okay, this is the requirement, and I'm the auditor for the FSSC, and they said you have to audit it. So how I started auditing it, I went to the company and then I checked what they are doing regarding the cleaning activities and how they're doing the cleaning activities inside the working environment, how they're cleaning the surfaces of areas in contact with product, how they're cleaning the floors, the drains, the transport vehicles, etc. And then I asked how often they're doing the swabs and how they're checking the microbiological aspects, and are they checking the air for some microbiological also aspects, etc. And then I said, okay, this is quite interesting, and I can include it in the environmental monitoring. And then someone said to me, no, this is not environmental monitoring. This is the verification of cleaning. Okay. So I said, if someone is taking the swabs after cleaning or once per week or once per month, this is just the verification of cleaning. I said, yes, this is the verification that the cleaning was performed sufficiently and that the cleaning was okay. But the environmental monitoring program is quite different thing. Okay. So I said, okay, now I understand. So let's see how we are going to develop this environmental monitoring program and what we are going to check now, like the auditors, but also what companies should do. And I was not the only one who asked that question, because obviously it needed to be explained. That's why FSSC 22000 issued a guidance document. And this guidance document is actually for the guidance document of the environmental monitoring, and it's issued in the October of 2022. Why this guidance document is issued? This is guidance for certified organization on how to implement environmental monitoring in their food safety management system. And this guidance document is meant as a guideline for the food industry to provide just the practical information and guidance on implementing only this one requirement, 257, in line with the GFSI requirements. So you have seen that the version of FSSC 5.1 is issued in November 2020, and after 2 years we have a guidance document. So what is there as a guidance document? First thing in guidance document is saying you need to create a team. It should be a multidisciplinary members. They should have a background in microbiology, food safety, maintenance equipment, etc. And that's it. So I added here something for you. This team could be also the same as HCCP team or any food safety management system team or SQF team, because it is the same team. It needs to be multidisciplinary, and probably if you have HCCP team, you will have a members who has some background in food safety, in microbiology, in maintenance equipment, etc. So you don't have to create a team because you already have a team in your food industry. Probably you will have your team as HCCP team or food safety management team. So the same team is the team who will decide about the environmental monitoring. Of course, number of members will depend on the size of the organization. The team is made from 2 people or 2 persons. If this is a company with 5 employees, then the team is made from 2. But if it's a really big company, then you can think about making the team with a larger number of people who has multidisciplinary knowledge, and that these members are now multidisciplinary members. Of course, if you don't have enough knowledge, you're a new company, or there is not a lot of investments in the competencies, then probably you would need to include some external experts, and of course you can include these external experts to help you developing your environmental monitoring program. But who could be these external experts? For example, you are using external laboratories in verification of your products, verification of your swabs, verification of your cleaning activities, etc. So why not then you include this laboratory to help you make the environmental monitoring program? This is external service for you. Try to use them to help you build the environmental monitoring program. And of course, when you define this team, you have to perform necessary internal and or, of course, external trainings. So now when we have made a team has to do something. According to the requirement and also according to the guidance, the first step what team should do is to conduct the risk assessment. In this risk assessment, the first step would be to make a list of all potential microorganisms that are relevant for your type of production and type of products. So now you can include in this list pathogens, spoilage organisms, indicator organisms, etc. And even FSSC in their guidance is giving a table with all the potential microorganisms that you can concern. But of course, this will ask from you to re-evaluate what type of products you have, what type of ingredients you have, what type of product handling you have, processes, what type of, let's say, product, development you have, and then what type of microorganisms you could have in your production. When we look at this guidance, it is really quite interestingly mentioned that hazards can occur from raw materials, pests, water, air, employees, etc. So you need, you consider also the microorganism, but you need to consider the places from or the surfaces from where these microorganisms can occur and in which level. In order to define this level, you can use your potential microbiological hazard. You can include cross-contamination risks that are covered in hazard analysis. So they're saying you have to perform the risk assessment, but nobody's saying how or where. And you already probably, if you implemented HCCP, you should already perform some hazard analysis. Okay, in this hazard analysis, you will have, of course, the evaluation of risks, meaning that you will evaluate for each hazard the likelihood and severity or impact of this hazard, and then you will have some kind of risks and risk assessment. So risk assessment should be performed to evaluate the likelihood and, as I said, severity or impact of the hazard. So what you will have to consider there? Okay, I have a step of product reception where I control my products. I control there the temperature of the products in order to prevent, if temperature is not okay, to prevent development of microorganisms, and then I evaluate the likelihood and severity, and this is classical HCCP hazard analysis. But when you look at the environmental monitoring, this is a little bit different. You will decide in this way, do you have surfaces that are in contact with product? What kind of microorganisms can exist on this surface? So what is the likelihood of happening that there is a microorganism on this surface? And you say, okay, likelihood is 2. It could happen that there is a miss in cleaning, the cleaning was not sufficient, and that there is a potential microorganism. But the severity or the impact could be high. You say, maybe it's salmonella and someone can die. So this impact can be like 4, it's very high. And when you compare it in risk metrics, you get the medium high risks. So you need to really understand which type of microorganisms can happen in your facility, that can come from raw materials, from pests, etc. What kind of microorganisms can live on these surfaces or can live in product if you don't have adequate activities and processes. And this is only the first step in your monitoring program. So when you look at the lists, you have to think about the most common pathogens. For example, salmonella, that could be in raw food or ingredients, then listeria, that could be in wet or cool chilled environments or in drains even, then staphylococcus, that could come from food handlers and hands, of course, if they're sick and they touch their noses and they don't wash their hands, etc. Then maybe Campylobacter, which could come in meat and poultry processing environment. Then, of course, you have to think about the spoilage organisms like yeasts and molds that could come from air and surfaces, And of course, there are indicator organisms that indicate that the hygiene is bad, that washing of hands is bad. And then you have coliforms, you have Escherichia coli, then you have enterobacteria from surfaces, or total plate count or aerobic plate count, etc. So these are just the list of microorganisms that can happen in your facility, and you have to think about them in a way, where are the surfaces where these microorganisms can happen? So when guidance is saying you have to conduct the risk assessment, they say first define areas or zones of risks. So mainly when we are talking about the zones of risk, we are talking about typical zoning plan that is done in 4-zone model. But when we think about this 4-zone model, we need to think about the GFSI and the FSSC definition, and then we should ask ourselves where to apply this 4-zone model. Is it a site environment or is it a manufacturing environment? Because zones are completely different. If we say it's a equipment environment, then we can have some zones that are connected only with this specific equipment. But if we have two different definitions, then we really need to decide which type we will use of this. But it will depend of your, of course, company, and I will show you both models. So when we talk about the 4-zone model about the site environment, probably you used already some zoning model for the cleaning, like color separation cleaning, etc., where you have different areas and different cleaning tools for different areas. But in this 4-zone model, it's a little bit different. You need to decide in which zone you have something that could be influencing the food that you are producing or handling. So zone 1 is the zone where you have direct contact with food production. So this zone includes areas where food is produced or processed, such as cooking and packaging areas. So it is controlled the whole area, cooking or the packaging area. Then samples are collected in this zone. They are most likely to contain pathogens or contaminants that can cause foodborne illness. And then you say, from the zone 1, I have walls, I have drains, I have specific parts of equipment in contact with product, and I will test this zone 1 for the presence of listeria, for the presence that could be in drains or on walls, and I will test this zone 1 for the presence of total plate count to see is cleaning sufficient, etc. And then you have zone 2. This is indirect contact with food production. So this zone includes areas that are in close proximity to food production areas, such as storage areas, equipment cleaning areas, personal change rooms. So samples collected in this zone may be used to monitor for potential cross-contamination. You will test the personal change rooms for the presence of, let's say, total plate count, because you want to see is the cleaning okay in this area, because if it's not done, then you will have maybe cross-contamination of personal hands or let's say uniforms, and then this could be entered into zone 1. So zone 2 is also canteen, where employees sit down during their lunch break, and then other microorganisms can happen on their uniform, or that is not present ordinarily in zone 1. Then you have a zone 3, which are the support areas, and this zone includes areas that support the food production process, such as maintenance rooms, administrative office, etc. And then you have outside environment, which is completely zone 4, and this includes the food production facilities such as loading docks or surrounding grounds, etc. And samples that you collect here are just to monitor the potential sources of contamination entering the facility from outside. So this is 4-zone model for the site environment. But when we talk about the manufacturing environment, then it's quite different. Then we narrow it down to the zones that really could influence the product. So I would say that this time FSSC was right saying that we should focus more on manufacturing environment. Manufacturing environment is actually cut down to 4 zones. First zone is direct contact with food production, and this zone includes utensils, it includes equipment that come into direct contact with food during processing or handling, such as knives, cutting boards, conveyors, mixing tanks. Then we have here that we need to test for the pathogens, or contaminants that can cause foodborne illnesses. Then we have a zone 2. This is indirect contact with food production. This zone includes utensils and equipment that are in close proximity, so it is in the same area, So all of these zones, zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, are actually, when we look at the site environment, inside the zone 1, all of this. So zone 2 is actually something that does not come into direct contact with food, such as racks, bins, storage containers, etc. Zone 3 are supporting areas, and they include the equipment that support the food production process, such as maintenance tools. So because maintenance tools are entering these tools inside the production, cleaning equipment, etc. And then we have a zone 4, which is outside environment. And this is actually the zone that includes utensils and equipment used outside, and this is transport vehicles, loading docks, samples collected, like, this could be movement docks, etc. But it's all entering into zone 1. Everything is connected with the zone 1 actually in the site environment. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, and let's have some questions together with you. So let's see, which zone is this surface? So you see this red arrow pointing out this zone in contact with product. So when we look at the manufacturing environment, can you please answer to me in the chat, which zone is this actually, this blue lane in direct contact with product? Hasib saying zone 1, Adriana zone 1, yes, direct contact 1, 1, 1. Everyone is saying 1. Yes, you are totally right. So this is actually zone 1. So this zone 1 is practically in direct contact with product, and this zone 1 is the place where you want to check always for the potential microorganisms, especially pathogen microorganisms that can lead to the foodborne illnesses. Okay, so let's see now, what about this surface? Which zone is this surface? Is it a zone 1? Is it a zone 2, zone 3, or 4? So please answer now in the chat, because this is very interesting, Adrian is saying 2, Imtaz 2, Kerry 2, Tanmei is saying 1, Yonda, oh, your answers are getting very fast. Yes, I would say that this zone is actually zone 2. Why this is zone 2? Because it is not in direct contact with the product. This is packed product. It is in contact with the packaging. And this product is actually really dry product, so no potential of development of microorganisms, and this is zone 2. So you would say, okay, in zone 1, where this cookie is baked and it goes online, it's in direct contact, I need to take care about some pathogen microorganisms that can be in connection, etc. But then I have this zone 2, which is actually not in direct contact, but it needs to be clean. Maybe I will check only this zone 2 for different kind of microorganisms to check just is cleaning sufficiently done. So your program and your risk analysis will be based according to these zones. So let's check now this tool that is handled by employees. Which zone is this surface? There is a question for you. You can answer it in the chat. Adrian is saying zone 3. Carrie, Sam, Nikki saying 1. Oh, we have a different answers coming. One is the major answer here. Someone is saying 3. Okay, someone is saying 2. But, you know, this is handling tool, you know, and this handling tool is in direct contact with product. It is in direct contact with product. So if we look at our rules for the manufacturing environment, definitely those who said zone 1 is, they are right. So zone 1 is actually these handling tools. Why? These tools are in direct contact with product, so they need to be, of course, sufficiently clean, and the hygiene needs to be perfect. But there are also places where you will look for the potential pathogen microorganisms, where you will look for the potential contamination with the food, pathogens that could lead to foodborne illness. And you have also the handling of this manufacturing equipment. But I'm also interested which type of microorganisms you can look for on this actually hand tools, because they're handled manually. So the scoop you will have actually handled by employees, and then what could happen is that you have a contamination from employees. So maybe you will look on this scoop for the staphylococcus, you know, because you have employee that is not healthy, and then you have a contamination with staphylococcus, and people are saying coliforms. Yes, I can agree with you. Also, coliforms could be, even E. coli. Bravo, because mainly all of these microorganisms can come from the bad hygiene of employees. So maybe you are really washing your utensils, your scoops, you are washing it correctly, you have a disinfection, you have everything, but then you have employee who didn't change the gloves, who didn't wash hands, who contaminated the gloves, or who is sick, you know, and during the work he has a bad way of doing it, so he's touching his nose maybe with the gloves, and then you have a contamination here. So what is actually environmental monitoring program? Actually, environmental monitoring program is the activities that you do to find out where are the organisms, microorganisms. That's why this is quite different than when we talk about the just verification of cleaning. You know, verification of cleaning can be only done with the, you know, some fast swabs to test the presence for proteins. And then you say there are no presence of proteins, we have cleaned this sufficiently, and this is the verification of cleaning, you know. But in the environmental monitoring program, you want to find microorganisms. So probably you will start with testing with swabs more and more the zone 1, which is in direct contact. But later, when you find out that there are no microorganisms in zone 1, after 1 year, you say, we didn't have any microorganisms found in these swabs, then you start looking them in the zone 2. Then you start more testing the zone 2. So idea is to widen your area of environmental monitoring program. Okay, also this is the zone. Which zone is this? So I see now that you are already answering 3, 2, 3, 2. Someone is saying 1, and I have to say this is zone 3. This is not in direct contact with product, but actually this rack is going from out of this manufacturing environment to other environment, and then it could lead to the cross contamination from some other environment. And also the microorganisms can be brought from other environment. Maybe in this area you don't have some type of microorganisms, but you don't have listeria in this area, but then you move this rack to other area, like in some cold area storage, and then you have over there listeria, and then you have cross contamination that you bring inside. So this is something that you really need to take care. When we look at the ventilation, what do you think about this ventilation? For example, which zone is this surface? I'm waiting for your answers in the chat. Zone 4. Everyone is saying 4. 3, 2, everyone is saying 4. But I would say it's zone 3. Yes, it's not in direct product. It is not going out, but it is taking air from the outside that goes inside, or from some outside system that goes inside. So probably we will take some sampling of the air, and we can call this zone 3 then, because this is air conditioning or the ventilation system, etc. It is not going outside, but it is taking something from the outside and entering inside, air handling unit. Yes. So, and this zone, yeah, I think that you already recognize this is transporting vehicle. So it is outside of our facility. And we could say that this is now zone 4. So at the end, when you look at these zones, at the end, you need to decide which zone is more important for your facility, depending from your type of product. If you only have dry products, if you have the transporting of the packed products, with no potential of contamination, then you will not check these transport vehicles. It is not of relevance for you because there is no any kind of potential cross contamination. But if you are transporting, fresh meat, then you will have to check also these zones. So these are all environments that will depend from your risk assessment, and you have to include it. When you look at the FSSC 22 guidance, they're saying that you need additionally, after you decide which zones are what and which microorganisms to check, you need to define which kind of monitoring techniques you are going to use. Will you be doing your own internal sampling and testing, meaning that you have internal laboratory? In many dairies and big meat industries, you will have internal laboratory, but in some cases, you will use external laboratory to do the testing. Then you need to think about which type of testing. Will you use only swabs? Will you test, of course, water samples? Will you use the air plates, or maybe just protein swabs or ATP swabs, or any fast swabs that detect specific kind of microorganism? Then you need to think about sampling techniques, where, when, how, etc. Also, when we talk about sample locations, this is based on the zoning plan. Sorry, Walter, the slide about air conditioning is a refrigerator evaporator. It does not take. Well, actually, he takes from the system. You don't have to take it outside. He takes from the refrigeration system, and in this refrigeration system, you can have, for example, listeria. So you need to check it, but it depends. It depends from the system. Okay, so regarding the monitoring frequencies, you need to think about how often and by whom this is done. And of course, to define limits, for example, relative luminescence units, if there are none defined by the legislation or by specific customer requirements or other specific requirements, then you need to define your limits, for example, and then you need to test for these limits. And of course, you need to think about what in case when these limits are broken, what you will be doing, what are the corrective actions, etc. So when you develop your environmental monitoring program, it actually needs to come to one point, and these are the corrective actions, meaning what you will do and that you are already prepared to do something if limits out of the defined one by the legislation or by your specific internal requirements. And at the end, you have, of course, the recording and analyzing of trends, which is important and final part. This will help you develop your environmental monitoring program even more and to go into more details and really understand your production facility or your manufacturing environment. And why I'm saying that is because all the GFSI standards really asks from you as a food safety professionals to go into deep when you are developing your programs for monitoring or where you are developing your verification activities, etc., because you really need to understand your product, your process, and the hazards that could happen inside the production on your facility, your site, or during the transport. I'm coming back again to the scope of this guidance document, because in this guidance document they are saying that complete guidance document is focused on the microbiological environmental monitoring, like it is defined in the GFSI, which is okay, it is in line with the GFSI. But in requirement 257, this requirement still remains from the November 2020, where they say the allergens also monitoring program. So allergens are there again, and then we need to also control them. They excluded these allergens, but I'm thinking personally when I look at the production and all the potential cross contact about the allergens, that this cross contact can happen, and we are doing the verifications of our products or the verification of cleaning, etc. But what about the environmental program? Nobody is saying that you have to have environmental monitoring only for the microbiological hazards, because FSSC, if you're certifying, they will say for microbiology, but if you include allergens, nobody will say you don't have to do it. But it's okay to do it, So we need to understand the allergens also present on site. This is the second kind of hazards that exist there. And this is just one way to show it to you how you can understand the allergens present on site. For example, you see here above are defined allergens like egg, fish, gluten, milk, peanuts, etc. And on the left, you have some ingredients. And then you have to think about which ingredients has which kind of allergens. And in this table, you see how this is done. But on your right side, you have also where these ingredients are located so that you can really understand, can there happen some cross-contamination, or can there be any potential presence of allergens, etc. So you can do the same type of zoning like you did the zoning from the for the microbiological hazards. You can do the zoning for the allergens potential. So if you have 3, 5 production lines, and you have on one line some kind of allergen, and on the second line you don't have it, you can say this is zone 1 where I have this type of allergens, this is zone 2 where I have this type of allergens, etc. And then you really evaluate where contamination or cross contact can happen. When you look at the allergen management, then you have also environmental monitoring, and then you can have also zones. You see here it is presented like zones A, B, C, and D. Again, these zones are quite similar to the zones 1, 2, 3, 4. So when we say here product contact surfaces where the product has direct contact with surfaces which may contribute to allergen cross contact. So let's say, for example, that we have a feeder for the filling and we are producing pasta, and on this pasta line we have a filling with meat and we have a different kind of filling with cheese, but all of these fillings are going inside one same filler area, you know. So probably we will do some programs of allergen management where we will have some that we start with the product that does not have allergens and finish with product that has allergens. We have some intermediate cleaning, etc. But still, there is this area where you could have potential cross contact in case that it was not cleaned sufficiently, in case that we have some rest of allergens, etc. And then it would be good that you define also environmental monitoring program that is based on the allergen management. Still, when you look at the FSSC, this is not quite, let's say, mentioned or needed by the FSSC, but nobody is saying that you don't have to include it, you know. When we talk about the allergen management requirement, then you see there that you need to verify the system, and again we are coming to the environmental monitoring. So if you want to find out more about the allergen management, and if you want to find out more about the GFSI requirements in food production, we have specifically developed in the IFSQN 4-hour training webinar where we offer practically to you the knowledge how you can understand the allergens, how cross-contamination and cross-contact can happen, how to prevent it, control it, and how to develop your strong food safety system that can build, of course, confidence of consumers. You can find out about this allergen management right now in the offers because Simon already set it up for you in the offers. If you click it there, you will go and find out more about allergen management. We have it actually next week on 14, we have this 4-hour beautiful training about the allergen management, and we will talk also about environmental monitoring for the allergens there. But of course, we are going to talk about, 14 allergens in EU, and we will talk about Big 8 with the inclusion of Big 9, and now allergen of sesame in America, which is done in last year. So we will talk more about it. If you want to join, click on offers, click on link, and you will find out more details and content about this. And dear friends, with this we have come to the end of today's presentation regarding environmental monitoring, and we can continue with questions. If you have them and you put here your questions, I will gladly answer on them. I mean, now there is a lot of people at the moment, so the chat is really fast. I cannot read all the questions,
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Vladimir. Just to say that training course next Tuesday, it's $97 per person. You get to join live next Tuesday for the 4 hours, but you also get access to the recording. So if you can't join live, you do get access to the recording for 30 days and to the certificate, etc. So hope to see some of you next week. Okay.
So I will go to the questions and maybe just Just see what is
Yeah.
there. So we have a question from Ahmed saying, is cross-contact for allergens and cross-contamination for microorganisms? Yes, Ahmed, I have seen this definition like few days ago, actually, in LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, someone published it. Even I didn't know that it is called cross-contact and cross-contamination, because I already thought that when you talk about allergens, it's also cross-contamination, you know, especially in the way I explain it, for that you have a filler which is used for, you know, filling some, let's say, cookies, and then this filler part could be filled with different kinds of fillings. You know, you can have fillings with hazelnut, but then you don't have fillings with hazelnut if cleaning is not done correctly. Then you have the contamination, definitely, with the allergen that could be in your product. But okay, we can adjust. If they define it as a cross contact for allergens, okay, we can call it cross contact. And if they define and cross contamination is definitely for the microorganisms. Then we have again, what is, okay, let's see, because there is a lot.
Yes, I've marked a question. Just hang on a sec. What is the total? This is from Ahmed. What is the total count limit for swabbing? I think that is.
So Ahmed, it will depend. Sorry, it could be defined from the legislation. So for example, in EU we have a regulation for the microbiological testing, and when you go into this regulation, you will have, for example, what is the total count limit for work surfaces, what is the total count limit for the handling tools, what is the total count, etc. So you can use, depending from your legislation, this total count. But on the other hand, you can go and look in the technical documents for specific type of productions, what limits are there. If there are none, you know, in your country or requirements, you can define it by yourself. You know, you see what is the minimum, and then you say for this, what is the minimum in more, how people are doing it. They look what is the minimum in the strictest regulation that exists, and then they say, okay, we follow this rule. You can define it like that.
Okay, a question from Sarah. How often frequency can environmental monitoring be done?
Yes, Sarah, this is a good question. So, for example, when we talk about the frequency on environmental monitoring, that's why FSSC promoted that you define zones. And then zone 1 is in direct contact with the product. Let's say that it is really risky zone. And then probably you would do the testing. Let's say that you engage external laboratories, so you do the testing of these zones in direct contact with product once per month, for example. But then on every second month or every third month, you do the laboratory swabs from zone 2, which is not in direct contact with product, but it is in the same area, and you have seen the zones too. So this is, let's say, done every quarterly, and once per or 2 times per year you do the zone 3, and once per year zone 4, for example. So after 1 year you can decide about different frequency. For example, if every month everything is okay, you haven't changed your processes, you haven't had any issues, you can say, okay, now zone 1 I will test every second month. You know, but maybe I will increase zone 2 to try to find out where are the potential contaminants, and how to control them, where the cleaning is not sufficient, etc. So it will quite depend from your of course product and the type of production and production area. You know, it's not the same if it's dry product produced in ambient stable area, or it is a product which is produced in cold area, where you have you know, in this cold area you have some wets, surfaces, and then you have available proteins. So everything very nice for the development of the microorganisms.
Okay. Tosin, how would you class PPE in direct contact with products, such as overalls? How often do we need to test things like overalls or not?
But do you mean like the packaging material in direct contact with the product?
I think they mean personal protective equipment, such as overalls, clothing.
Because this could be also a packaging material. So the short for the plastic packaging. Okay, so personal equipment in direct contact with the product, including the overalls. Yes, I would include, if let's say you have gloves and they are doing with hands some direct contact with the product. This would be definitely be zone 1. But in general, we define the work uniforms, we define the gloves and everything like a zone 2, which is not in direct contact with the product. If we talk about the packaging material, which is in direct contact with product, then we would call this zone 1. It is in direct contact with product. And regarding the testing, for example, regarding the testing of the wash uniforms, like the testing, we often, what I see in companies is that they are doing it quarterly. They don't do it every month, but every month they are doing the hands of employees. And regarding the packaging material in contact with food, probably they would do it at least quarterly, but it depends from the type of product, you know. For dry products, once per year, sufficient.
Okay. Question from Fiona. When is the best time to conduct environment monitoring program? Is it better to conduct during production?
Yes, this is good question, Fiona. This is really good question because when you do the environmental monitoring program and you focus only on the process when the process of production is ended, you know, then you have a cleaning and practically you would have always a good results. But let's say like this, zone 1s are in direct contact with products, so you cannot test them there. You will have different kind of you know, you can have some grease, you can have some that these results are not realistic, and maybe zone 1 you do when it's after cleaning, etc. But zone 2, which is not in direct contact with product, probably you can do also while production is active, and zone 2, zone 3, zone 4.
Okay, what about Cinicello? What about a dusty packaging area? How do you carry out the program there?
Yeah, I would do it only after cleaning is done in that case. And I would include also the allergen management or the allergen monitoring program, because in dusty areas if there are powdered allergens, they are flying all over. If you have different allergens in different areas, you have to think about this, controlling these areas. But in dusty areas where you have everything covered with in surfaces, you have to do it. You cannot do it while you are working. You have to do some cleaning, you know, to come to the areas.
Okay. Question from Albert. Can you follow up on pathogen testing and the facility having a policy to hold the lot of tested products associated with tested food contact surfaces to be on hold until a negative test results received?
Albert, I have never heard that anyone is doing this from the companies I audited. I heard that, of course, and checked and audited, that someone is waiting for the laboratory tests to release the product on the market. But I never had the opportunity to see that someone is, you know, checking results of the production area, saying everything was good, microbiology was good, and then we test also product, and when we confirm everything, then we release the product on market. It would be nice to have this kind, but also it would be expensive, I think.
Yeah. Okay, I think you've covered the frequency of conducting validation, frequency of conducting validation of EMP.
Once per year would be sufficient to conduct the validation of your environmental management program, once per year. And I would recommend that you always do the validation when you are doing, let's say, together with the internal audit or inspection of the site, etc. Then you do also the validation of your EMP.
Okay, question from Adrian. How do we classify or identify the level of risk, high, medium, low per zone? Is there a matrix in identifying the risk?
Yeah, well, I cannot say it because it will depend from the industry, of course. So if it's a high risk industry, then your level of risks will be definitely higher. Even your low risk will be higher than in other industries. So for example, FSSC only promoted that you have zones, zone 1, 2, 3, and 4. They explain what are the zones and what should be included in these zones, but then you have to decide for each of these are there any risks. But to get to risk, you need to have a probability of happening and severity of happening, and then you will say, okay, now this is a risk or it is not a risk. So we mentioned, if you test these surfaces in zone 1 during the whole year and you get the results that they are okay during the whole year, so this risk, your risk maybe was high at the beginning, but when you confirmed it through the environmental monitoring program that everything is okay, then probability of happening is very low, so your risk will be very low. And you have good implemented procedures, processes to control or the cleaning procedures, etc.
Okay, question from Joe. Is the FSSC environmental monitoring requirement for ready-to-eat products only?
No. This is for the category C, which means that it goes for all the subcategories in this C, and this could be perishable products, it could be meat products, it could be ambient stable products, and etc. But it also connected with the category K, which is biochemicals, so chemicals and biochemicals. So it's not only just ready-to-eat products.
Okay. I think we need to have a training course 4 hours on this, Vladimir, because there's not enough time to go through.
Not enough time, because environmental monitoring program now it will be published. The IFS food version 8 will be published. They also included environmental monitoring as part of the requirements, and I think that this gives us opportunity in future to talk more about the environmental monitoring program, because it really depends, from type of industry, from the, infrastructure, if it's a new company or it is an old company, design of equipment, the training of employees, the cleaning, habits, etc. So this is all connected with this environmental monitoring program. But the basic idea is that environmental monitoring program you use to help yourself to understand what you need to improve, where you should improve the cleaning, or where should you improve the monitoring program and not the monitoring, the training program, etc. So environmental monitoring program and at the end the trend analysis need to help you actually build a stronger system. It is not something that you are doing to show to the auditors or the regulative inspection that you have controls in place,
Yeah. Well, okay, we're 10 minutes over. We'll take a couple more questions, but we're not going to get through all of them.
I have one that I have seen. Yeah. For PISA finishery. So let me just, I have some that is interesting.
Is it that one?
Okay, for pizza commissioning, when the best time to conduct the swap during the operational event? Yeah, we already said that you should do it depending from the zones. Zone 1, you cannot do it while you're producing. Zone 2 and 3, you can do it while you're producing. So it's
okay. Here's another.
Also, I have this one from Pavel saying, are rapid tests sufficient to conduct the EMP? Well, if you want to test specific microorganisms, like pathogen microorganisms, etc., then your rapid tests maybe are not sufficient, because probably with rapid tests you are going to check the protein presence, or you're not checking the specific microorganisms. So let's say that you combine at the beginning, you combine the rapid tests, and then you also combine with rapid tests you are doing more often, let's say weekly tests or daily tests, etc. And then you have additionally external laboratory to check the similar places from where you are taking your rapid tests. And then after, let's say, 1 year period, you say this is 1 year period where we will evaluate our EMP, and then you say, okay, we confirmed our rapid tests with the external laboratory which is accredited, so we are only going to continue. We see that this is sufficient, we are only going to continue with these rapid tests. But you have to have this, let's say, logical approach to it.
Okay. Yes, you will get the recording afterwards, and there's been quite a few compliments on the presentation, Vlad.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so I think that there's additional some questions, but now we are coming to an end.
Yeah. If you, just as a little straw poll, put in the sidebar yes, or if you would attend a longer training course, because obviously putting a training course together of 4 hours would take quite some effort and time. So if you are interested, just say yes in the sidebar, and then we can gauge if you would be interested.
If you are interested, yes, definitely. Then we can make a 4-hour training and maybe go more into details, about microorganisms, which type of microorganisms on which type of surface, and where to look for, and maybe which type of test to use it.
Yeah. Well, I think I've seen at least 10 and probably more. So I'm sure a lot of people would do it. So it's something we can think about. But thanks for your time today, Vladimir, as always.
Thank you also.
And don't forget, we've got the allergen training next week.
Next week, allergen training. We will talk more about it. You have in the offers the link. Please click there, read what we are offering, and probably we'll see you next week. Thank you, Simon.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Vladimir. I'll just load your certificates in the sidebar, everybody. You can download that. We'll follow up in an hour or two with the recording, the slides, and the certificate. If you come into the training next week, we'll see you next Tuesday. Otherwise, we'll see you next Friday on Food Safety Fridays. Have a great weekend. Bye, everyone.
Bye.